Welcome to Gapology Radio Podcast with authors Mark Tinas and Brian Brockhoff. We can be reached at gapology.org, and our books can be found at amazon.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gapology Radio. I am psyched for this week. We've got a special treat, a special guest that we're going to have on the show today. Her name is Courtney, and she is a regional sales director in the cosmetics industry. And more than that, she's a good friend of ours. She's a huge advocate of Gapology. I've known her for years, and I was talking to her the other day on the phone, and she was sharing some of her experiences, some of her wins, some of the challenges that she's faced. And I thought, this would be awesome. Why don't we get her on the show, have her share some of these experiences with everybody so you can hear real testimony from the real world. So let's jump right in and give her a call and get her on the line.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Courtney. How's it going?
Going great. How are you?
I am excellent. And hey, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for jumping on the show. I know everybody's going to be psyched to hear you and hear your story. This is the first time we've had a guest on the show, so we're just kind of testing this out. I think this actually could be a cool feature that we do going forward. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just finishing up my office day, so I'm happy to jump on and talk about Gapology with you.
So, last week we were on the phone and we were talking about some things you were doing around Gapology. And it was exciting to hear the successes, but also some of the struggles that you ran into with it, because I think it's important that people know that, in the real world, you're going to run into obstacles. So I'd love to hear, the obstacles that you ran into, how you overcame them, gaps that you discovered with them, if they were knowledge, importance, or action, the root solutions that you used, tools that you used, all those kinds of things. I think it'd be really interesting for the audience to hear some of that. So why don't you share some of the things that you discovered?
So I wanted to introduce my team to Gapology. I have about 7 leaders that report directly to me and about 40 people that work for us part-time. And I really wanted to introduce them to something from a leadership perspective that would help them grow as leaders, but also grow and cultivate a culture, of growth and succession planning on my team. And so Gapology, I was introduced to, I want to say probably in 2015, actually by you, and you sent me your book because we have a previous history working together. And I had read it, and in my previous position, I had applied it there, but it wasn't something that I was necessarily applying on my day-to-day interactions with my leadership team in my current role as a regional sales director in cosmetics. And so I had some time off having a baby, and I picked up this book, Gapology, and decided to reread it, because I really wanted to think about what I had already achieved. So I had set a goal for myself of being the number 1 performing region in the company, and in 2018 I achieved that. So I was thinking about what did I want to achieve with my team of leaders for 2019, and what I really discovered was that I really wanted to work on their leadership development. So we had been the number 1 performing region, and we had great things that we were doing that allowed us to achieve that. But every time we executed something and we went back and reviewed it, I realized that there were so many things we could have done better. And I felt confident in the talent that I had on my team. I felt like I had hired the right people, but there were still some things missing. There were still some gaps that we're having, and if we had become number 1 from a sales perspective, still having these gaps, that I felt there was so much more, we could achieve, not just from a sales standpoint, but from leaders with our team. So really circling back to Gapology, to identifying the gaps on my team, to really then set our teams up for success and to be better leaders.
So that's really interesting. So we've talked a lot on the show about identifying gaps. When you take a step back and you're dissecting your performance, I think it's always important to look at wins as well as opportunity areas. Your team being a winning team, how did you look at that? What was your process for identifying those gaps?
I think it's really important that with every success and every failure or area of opportunity that we have as a team is that we really talk about it collectively. And so we'll talk about our wins, or we would talk about our struggles. I realized that in those discussions that there was some training gaps, that there was some communication gaps, that there was some accountability gaps. So even though we were winning, we were still having gaps in our team that were holding us back from even going further.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it really just is like that open discussion with your team. It's really, creating an environment where we can come to the table and talk about our successes and our struggles together.
Mm-hmm. It really sounds like you were really creating a teaching organization, involving your team and involving all of those smart brains that work with you. I think can really bring a lot more to the table than just trying to think about all that on your own.
Yeah, well, I had a mentor and a previous vice president of a company that once told me, you don't want a bunch of Courtneys walking. It's really important that you diversify your team and you hire people with the opposite strengths of you, and so that you come together and you really create this diverse environment of successful people, and then your overall achievement will be so much greater. So I really look at that, and then I have another trainer that I used to love learning from, and she would always say, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotten. And so I try to really put that out there to my team when we're talking, is like there's always opportunity for growth. Like we never want to be ripe and rotten. And where can we dissect our performances and learn how to do better?
Yeah, absolutely. With Gapology, what were some of the tools that you used as you were going through and trying to continue to improve your team's performance?
Well, what we did was we had a conference for my region in January. And so I brought the team together, and it was a 2-day meeting with all of my account executives and account coordinators. And we spent one day really diving into our 2018 performance. And then we spent the second day really growing as a leader. And so what I did on the second day was I really wanted to teach them Gapology. So we had a PowerPoint, we had handouts, we had exercises that we did, all from the book. Everything is right here in the book. And we spent that day really going over and as leaders, learning Gapology together and, dissecting the gaps on our individual teams and also the gaps that we had among us as leaders. We used the habit ladder. We used the commitment ladder. We did the game with the expectation index card game. That was, pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, that's one of our favorites for sure. So what did you learn with that one?
So I learned that I'm not the A-level leader I really thought I was.
What?
So I went in and I was like, yes, I've been clear on my expectations with my team. They all know this. We talked about this. And as we did the index card and I handed it out and asked them to write down my 3 expectations, one is not a single one of them got it 100% right.
Wow.
So, that was a learning opportunity for me. Mm-hmm. And then each person got at least one of my 3 expectations, but almost like a generalized idea of my expectation and not really the specifics of my expectations. And so it really let me know is that there was some opportunity with filters. So how I am explaining the context that I'm presenting my team, the bias they may have, the filters they hear, they were hearing the expectations I had differently, and even in turn taking those and executing those expectations differently based on the filter and the way they heard it. So it really opened up, the opportunity for me to be able to see on my team, that I had some importance gaps there, from an expectation perspective, from a communication perspective, and also that I really needed to take it back to probably my teaching, and there was some knowledge gaps there too.
Yeah, it's interesting that communications funnel diagram that we have in the book that we've talked about, that really demonstrates the filters that you talked about. It is amazing. And people have a filter based on their previous experiences, the way that they see the whole world. And the message that you deliver as a leader is very rarely the exact message that people hear and learn and remember, unless you are super clear, super specific about what your expectations are. So what things did you do to help overcome the challenges with that?
So once we had that meeting and I left the meeting, I even called you to tell you like how successful it was, how great I was. I was so happy to deliver this to my team. Mm-hmm. They were so receptive. They were taking notes. They were engaging in dialogue. Like, I left that feeling like, wow, this was an amazing presentation. I got through to my team. They're so excited, and I can't wait to see them take what they learned and really put it into action with their team. So I wanted to make sure that, for this year, every single month, I was committed to personally developing my team. And so each month we take one of our conference calls. We have a conference call every single week. And one of those conference calls in the month, we really take in to revisit Gapology and dive a little bit deeper into it. And so since I knew as a leader setting clear expectations was one of the most important things I could do for the month of February, the month following my meeting and my conference with my team, I set that call up for us to dive into expectations. And the very first question I asked was, who wants to share one of the expectations I have for you guys for our region? And not one person answered. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, nobody remembers. And so one of my girls who is really, fully committed to our team and our region, the success of it, she said, well, I know I wrote it down in my notebook, but I haven't revisited my notes since the meeting.
Wow.
And so right then and there, I felt, okay, we still have some important gaps. We still have some knowledge gaps. Something was missing in that presentation that did not connect with the team to have them go back and revisit these expectations. So I thought to myself, we have visual learners, kinesthetic learners, auditory learners, and then we have to also tie in like the real importance of these expectations. And somewhere I missed it with each one of them. So as we went back to the notes, then they were like, oh yeah, this, and you said this, and this is our other expectation. And what I realized is I had to find another way to connect with them. So what we did was in the month of April, we did an exercise with expectations by creating a picture frame. All of us have offices. We're spending time in our office each week. And I thought we needed to have a reminder. And so one of my account executives came up, with the idea of like, let's do it on a picture frame. Let's talk about this on a picture frame. So we bought the picture frame, put some pretty paper on the inside, got some markers, and on the inside of the picture frame, we wrote out the expectations for my region. And each one of our account executives and account coordinators and even our part-time artists wrote those expectations out on the picture frame. And then on the outside of the frame, we wrote down the expectations that their individual leader had for them. And that was for them to take home, be able to put in their office or put somewhere where they start their day, so that every day they look at it and they say, yes, these are the expectations that our leadership team has for us. And these expectations are followed by these behaviors. And this is how I'm going to get the results that I'm looking for when I go into store, and how to create success with my team.
That is awesome. I love that. It's creative, but I think even more than that, I think the important thing that I was hearing as you were sharing that was the fact that you know your team and you know that it needs to be different. The delivery needs to be different. It can't just be the same thing over and over again. So, having that creative way to, with the picture frame, I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah, like we were face to face and we covered it, through an exercise and a presentation. And then we were on a Zoom call and we talked about it and we reviewed our notes. And it's become something that every single week on our conference call, we talk about the expectations and we talk about our results. So when I'm talking about our sales performance, then we talk about the behavior or the expectation that we put into play that helped us achieve those results. So it's something like we're constantly revisiting as a team. Even from a coaching perspective, if we are having a disconnect or a problem or something that we need to discuss with one of our team or with one of our accounts, we always take it back to, was this the expectation? Did I display all of the behaviors I needed that are expected of me in order to achieve this result? And so as leaders, we're taking the ownership in our knowledge and our importance with ourselves and our team and our accounts to, take that ownership in the action or the result that we're getting.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So I'd like to just kind of wrap it up, Courtney. First of all, this has just been fantastic. I definitely know we are going to continue to do these. I love this. So what I'd like you to do is just kind of leave us with maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you think our listeners should put into practice right away. What are some things that can change their lives immediately? I'm putting you on the spot, I know, on this one.
Yeah, no. So I think the thing that can change your life immediately as a leader is definitely setting clear expectations and finding different ways to revisit it. When I set my expectations, I looked at them differently. I wanted to set expectations that were going to get us results, but that would resonate with my team. So being in cosmetics, I knew that a cosmetic sale is a connection. So when a client is buying a cosmetic product, it's because they're emotionally connected to that product, whether it was an influencer or a review or a compliment or a suggestion from a friend. So when I created my expectations, I really took that into consideration, that I needed an emotional tie-in to those expectations when I delivered them to my team, so they were emotionally bought into those expectations. So I think you want the result, but creating the expectation and the behavior that goes along with it and delivering it to your team in a way that they will be emotionally connected to it, I think is so important. The second thing I would say is that be a teacher. Really think about the content that you deliver to your team and the way that you deliver it, and make sure that you're really making sure that they're aware of the what, the how, the why, and the when. It's so important, I think most important for adults, is they really need to know the what and the how, but they need to know the why. Yeah. In order to get that buy-in, to get the action, they have to really know the why. So make sure that when you are developing your talent, that you're really putting the why out there for them. And it will really change how they perform if they understand the why behind it. So, and then my third thing would say is really create culture with your team. So for my team, I try to create a culture of learning. So every day I want to be a better leader. I want to be more transparent and more empathetic and more connected to my team. So I'm trying to intentionally create that culture with my team. So I think you have to really think about the culture you want with your team and how you want them to feel. And for me, being a kind leader is the culture that I want to create. And that allows them, to come to me and be able to open up, find the gaps, and be able to close them and really create success. So culture, teaching, and setting clear expectations that emotionally connect to your team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And I know I just totally put you on the spot for that. But anyway, so, hey, thank you, Courtney. Thank you again for joining us. I definitely would like to get you on the show again down the road. How does that sound?
Yeah, I would love to revisit it because, we're going to be diving into the habit ladder more. We're going to be diving into the commitment ladder, which I think is so important, is really, diving into the commitment of your team. So I would love to come back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we'd love to hear your progress. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you a little later.
Brian.
Okay, take care.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.
All right, what an awesome episode. I cannot wait to get this thing edited and posted. I know that you guys are going to love this one. And I look forward to having her on again and having more special guests. I think that'll be fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. I will talk to you all later. Everyone have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been a Gapology production. Visit us at gapology.org.